into 3 segments so that we can focus on particular topics that I think people and the Keystroke audience will be interested in. So in our first segment, I'm going to ask Janet to explain a little bit about World Anvil and where the idea came from for World Anvil and how they were able to create the project. And then we'll be moving on in other segments to what the current state of World Anvil is and what it can do now and in the future that's specific to the author community. So welcome to Keystroke International, Janet.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you here. We do a lot of work with authors, but not so many with people providing specific services that might be useful to authors. And we saw that Chris Fox had done a video showing what he was already doing with World Anvil, and I know Killian Carter that you had on a couple of weeks ago. I know him quite well, and I know he's huge. He's very excitable, so he's hugely excited about about World Anvil, and he's really enjoying using it. I know, so I really wanted to get into it because I personally want to use it. So let's see what we can do. So do you have an elevator pitch that you can give for what World Anvil is and what it can do?
Yeah, so I had to explain this to like my mother and my accountants, what this thing was, right? So this is my normies pitch. If you want to write a fantasy novel, if you want to create a video game, if you want to create a Dungeons and Dragons game, you need to create a setting to do that. And World Anvil is the tool set that allows you to do that. It helps you create maps, it helps you create timelines, it helps you write articles about this fictional place so that it becomes real, and then it helps you keep track of everything as you build and grow. So that is what World Anvil is.
Yeah, so it's effectively a repository for all the information that you might need.
Right, exactly. So for authors who already know what I'm talking about, I would say it's a wiki on steroids. It is a wiki specifically designed for world builders and specifically designed for authors. Again, it gives you the timeline functionality, it gives you the map functionality, so you can track what's happening and where it's happening. Your maps link to other maps, so you can get a full scope of what you've created. So you can have your country, and then you can have your region, and then you can have your city, and then you can have your scene if you want to. Sure. If that's how you work, if you're a very visual author. But of course, the other thing it does is that it helps you share your stuff with your fans, and it helps you with the advanced permissions, give rewards to your Patreons, give rewards to people who buy your books, this kind of thing. So it's a professional tool as well as a world building tool, and it's something that you can really use to build your fan base as well as building your worlds.
Great. So where did the idea for World Anvil come from? What was the sort of genesis of that idea?
I'm laughing because World Anvil is essentially the biggest present I ever got. The most elaborate gift I was ever given. So my husband and I started this project together as a hobby, essentially because I was writing a fantasy novel. My genre is epic fantasy. And I've written the beginning of some very nice novels, in my opinion, but I never managed to get through anything. And it was always the world building that tripped me up. So I'm trained as an opera singer, so I would have like notes on the back of an opera aria and notes in a notebook, and then notes on a random napkin, and I would lose things. I had a Google Doc of 150 pages that I could not navigate, and it had all of this information in that was not accessible at all, not useful at all. And because I couldn't cross-reference easily, I would end up with contradictory information in different parts of this horrific linear document, right? Because it was unusable information. And Demetrius said, well, I can help you. Let me make you a thing that will help you. So he made me World Anvil. He and I are both tabletop role players as well. So we play Dungeons and Dragons, essentially. Yeah, we started to see, as he started building this thing, which he did while we were on holiday, because we're nerds and that's what we do.
That's 100% of our audience, so you're not gonna,
Yes, my people.
Everybody who's not on side and is listening to Keystroke, go. Or
come join the tribe. You know what? We're very welcoming.
Yeah. If you're not already a geek, and if you're not already a role player or an author or a reader or something, then you know you're probably in the wrong place.
So we started to see the application as well for people who create campaigns for Dungeons and Dragons, and it just grew from there. And that's really where this concept came from. And apart from that, the reason that we've grown the way we've grown is really our community. So we started 18 months ago. We're now 300,000 users.
300,000. That's
we hit 300,000 yesterday. I think we now have 10,000 active members on our Discord. And that's like the real active core of the community. And do you know what? We made a tool for people to use. So when they come to us and they say, oh, I'd really like it if it could do this thing, we say, okay, let's make that happen.
We'll just add it to the list. Yeah.
Right, exactly. That sounds great. Like if you want it, somebody else will want it. So of course we have to prioritize our feature requests and this kind of thing. But that's one of the reasons it's grown to become the tool that it has, is because the authors and the world builders and the game designers and the tabletop role-playing game masters who use the tool have come to us and said, I would like it to do this. It's great. I love it. But what if it could do this? And that's how we've grown. And that's how we've grown as a tool as well. Yeah. Which is great because it means we're serving people's needs. Dimitri and I, we just want to help people create stuff. You know, we're creators ourselves. We want to facilitate. So yeah, that's why World Anvil, and that's sort of how World Anvil as well.
So now I got it into my head for some reason. I thought maybe you'd done a crowdfunding campaign, but that's not the case, is it?
No.
How did you sort of fund actually spending enough time on this to make it work, or is Dimitri just not sleep?
Well, neither of us get very much sleep. We work very long days. We started as a Patreon because, as I mentioned, we started as a hobby. We didn't know this was a business. We thought it was a hobby. So we thought it was something that was fun, and we started with a Patreon because we wanted to fund the servers, basically. And yeah, we sort of worked on it in our off hours, and then it got to a point where it became a job and 2 jobs. So now it is. We had to move away from Patreon in the end because, well, this is no diss against Patreon. Well, it's a great service and it's great for a lot of people, but we found that it wasn't quite what we needed, and it didn't give people the flexibility that they needed. So they could only pay in dollars. They could only pay at the first of the month. It was hard to do tiered subscriptions, and it was a lot of overhead for us in terms of if somebody subscribed, we'd then have to add them, and then we had to remove them, and it was really hard to track. So in the end, we moved to a website subscription service because it was not practical to stay with Patreon. But in terms of the crowdfunding, I've never
seen a Patreon account with 300,000.
We still have members there. We still have members who hang out there, and we've said, come to the website, it's easier. And they said, but I like Patreon, so I'll stay here. Yes. That's fine. That's okay. If you want to stay there, it's cool.
Yeah, no, but I totally get it. You know, you need to be able to scale what you're offering, and if you're going to go to those sort of subscriber numbers, which is amazing. So that's another thing that's revealed to me. I had thought that you had set up World Anvil purely for role players in the first, and then realised, but there are other world builders out there. But instead, it's a present to you, specifically for an author, and then you said, but this is the same world building we do for, you know, all our role-playing games, or you know, all those campaigns you write as a GM, and then your players go, oh, I don't fancy playing that. That's been my experience, probably because I'm not a very good GM. So I'm sure I've got plenty of friends who are like, no, 90% of my campaigns have been fully played.
But actually, the thing that we love about World Anvil is that it's not just the campaigns that you play; it's the campaigns that you want to remember.
Yes.
Because you know what role players do when they hang out together is they tell each other the stories of the adventures that they've been on and the people that they were when they were going on those adventures.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so beautiful. It's such a great way to communicate and share these experiences that you've had. And you know what? If you lose your notes, that's it.
Yes.
It's gone. And that's the beauty of having things on cloud servers, is that you can't lose them. If your machine breaks, it doesn't matter. It still exists. It's on the cloud. It's backed up in 3 different places.
I have
not going anywhere.
I have old character sheets from the mid-1980s, so you know.
Yeah, exactly. And magically, you've managed to preserve them.
Can I throw some things out? Well, what is it? oh, those are school notes. Yeah, you can throw those out. And she's like, what about these? I'm like, no, that's role playing, so you can't throw that out. You know, I can't go. So, right. So your business model is a subscription based business model.
Yeah.
And that's how you fund the ongoing development and so on.
Yeah.
Are you both now full time on this? Because I'm assuming you weren't doing software as a private company when Dimitri made it for you.
No, well, we weren't a company at all. We were. That all came later. That came when money.
I'm guessing you were doing opera singing and he was coding for somebody else. But
yeah, that's right.
Are you both full time on this now? Or?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It's pretty intense. Yeah. We still do other bits and bobs as well, but yeah, it's pretty much flat out. We work very long hours. I'm just gonna go ahead and put that out there.
No, that's I think a lot of our audience are authors. They're familiar with that because we're mostly indie authors. So there's no they all have to run the business side as well as just writing the books. Not that a crowd publisher author can really get away without doing any marketing.
Right, exactly. I mean, you can, but then you're just sending your works into the void.
Yes, yeah. I don't recommend crowd to anybody who likes eating. Okay, so yeah, I mean, is there anything else you'd want to talk about how World Anvil came to be, or?
I mean, really, just that we grew up with this amazing community, and that we have so many helpers. I will say that we have different tiers of helpers. We have community helpers. We have some freelancers who help us out on a more professional basis, and we have everything in between. And we couldn't run World Anvil. The Anvil would not stand without those people. And then, of course, because you mentioned that we have a subscription service, we have everything from a $3 tier to a fully professional tier, depending on what you want. But you can also use the Worldbuilding features for free. And that was one of the things that was really important to us, is that if you just want to go and world build, you should be able to do that. You should have a tool set that is rigorous enough and sophisticated enough to be able to do that for free.
Yeah.
So there is, I think, 3.5% of our members, of our users are guild members.
Right.
And they are freaking heroes. They're the people who keep World Anvil going.
Guild members is everybody who's using a paid account.
Exactly. They're the ones who have a paid account as opposed to just using the free features.
Yeah. That's great.
And they're the ones that keep it all going. So yeah, if we're talking about how it started and how it runs, we couldn't do it without the guild members.
No, of course not.
And they're incredible.
Yeah. No, I mean it seems like a great community, and of course with anything like this, the community support for each other is extremely important, not least of which because that's how you find out how to use a tool like this to the best degree, because a software designer can only make tools available, but they can't do 1,000 different variations, and they can't imagine all the things people are going to do with their software either. So
right, I always say if you give creative tools to creative people, amazing things happen, and that's what we see with World Anvil as well. And often, like you can know how to use the tool. I know how to use the tool, but sometimes I will go and look at somebody's article and be shocked by what they've created and how beautiful it is, and the layout and the CSS theming that they've done. Sometimes I can't figure out how they've done something, and Demetrius has the same thing. Demetrius is my husband, who's the techno mage behind the whole code.
Yeah.
Occasionally he will look at a page and just go, I don't recognize this as my website. This is amazing. And that's the stuff that the community is great for. Like that knowledge, and they have so much time to tinker around and experiment with it. Which of course Dimitri and I do not have the time to do that so much. No. So yeah, I mean, the community is an amazing resource for that as well.
Yeah, this sort of thing has come an awfully long way since I remember MySpace being a thing, and everyone that you went to had flashing text on it. I was not unhappy when that sort of disappeared from HTML, because it was I never once saw it and thought that looks good, it works. It was always it's the equivalent of when you're in primary school and they say, oh yes, do a poster with bubble writing in different colours, and I always think we should stop teachers doing that, because it's fun, but you're basically saying to the children, it's like saying, it'd be like teaching them maths deliberately wrong. You know, just give them a design principle that will actually serve them in later life. Like, it would be better if that word was all the same colour. It'll, you know, just let them go with that. Don't tell them something that's definitely wrong.
Right. Don't teach them the Google principle, essentially.
Well, yes, yeah, exactly. So, so that's great. I think that's an excellent introduction to you know, how World Anvil came about.